Hey guys, got a satisfying game to share with you from this morning. So I'm playing an opponent who's rated just below 1700. Okay, and I managed to get the win. This is a 30-minute rapid game, and I'm playing with the black pieces. So this is really good for me because I got like 12 or 13 rating points and got straight back to 1500. I'm still waiting for the points to be returned from the computer cheat that I played the other day, but we'll see. Chess.com says to leave it a week, so I'm going to leave it a week. Okay, so let me take you through this game. So we have e4, e6, French defense, d4, d5. Pretty standard opening. And now white plays the Tarash variation with knight to d2. Obviously that blocks the defense, the queen's defense of this pawn. And I go ahead and play c5, which is a normal continuation, and now knight to f3. So now this pawn is defended once by the knight. Knight to c6 adds a second attacker to the pawn. Only one defender. And now we have the exchange pawn takes on d5. And I thought about this. Maybe pawn takes might actually still be the best move. It would have left me with a bit more control over the centre. But in the game, I chose to capture with the queen. Now we have bishop comes out to c4, hitting the queen, and the queen just goes back. So I lost a bit of initiative there. Now we have pawn takes on c5, bishop takes on c5. So that's what this bishop does. It sits there and waits to see if white captures that pawn, and then gets to develop. Okay, knight comes out, queen comes out, and we've both castled. Okay. Knight attacks the bishop. Bishop drops back to b6. And now the bishop comes out to pin the knight. Now this is an annoying pin. This is one of those frustrating ones. That it's my queen that's behind the knight. So my knight can't move or I lose my queen. But if I move my queen somewhere else, bishop takes and I'm forced to recapture with the pawn that's in front of my king. And that would be very weakening. So it really is very, very sticky kind of pin, this. I don't like it at all. So I start to manoeuvre my dark squared bishop round. Maybe my dark squared bishop might even come around to here to break the pin. Rook comes in to attack the queen. Queen goes to e7. Still protecting the knight. And now I'm thinking about getting maybe my bishop onto there or to there. At least lining up towards black's king. And also connecting my rooks. I need to complete development that way. If knight comes out, we have an exchange of knights, and now queen to d4. What's the point of this move? As it looks like the queen could just be a target of a discovered attack from the rook. Well, because the knight has moved away from f3, it's now no longer defending h2, and so with this move I'm actually threatening mate in 1 with queen takes h2. My opponent doesn't fall for that, of course, being nearly 1700 rated, and has been over 1800 rated, according to his profile. So the queen comes back now again to defend the knight. So we've just had a little dance in the middle, but no dice. Bishop moves across, and I kick the bishop with a6. Now the bishop comes in to c6. It's quite annoying. Rook to b8. Pawn comes up, and now I offer to exchange bishops. White decides to capture the knight, and now we have queen to e4. So now there's two attackers on that bishop and only one defender. So I've got the obvious move here would be to initiate the exchange, but that I figured that would allow white's queen to come into my territory and maybe cause some problems. So I thought, well, what alternatives are there? And I realised that dropping the bishop back to a8 is an alternative. So now if bishop takes, I've got rook takes, queen can't recapture, and I'd just rather have white's queen there than deep in my territory, like here. So now the rook comes in to attack the bishop. So now I initiate the exchange. And now we have a situation where I've got two attackers on the bishop, and no defenders at all. So there's no point adding one defender. The bishop is going to have to move. So the bishop comes up to f4, and now the rook comes in, attacking, well, not really attacking my rook, because that would just be a straight exchange, but the real target is the pawn on b6. So, put yourself in black's position now. There are a couple of moves that don't lose material here. You want to protect the pawn, okay? So it's attacked twice, and it's defended maybe once, but that doesn't count if the queen captures. If the queen captures, then the rook isn't defending the pawn. If the rook captures, yes, we can defend, but then queen takes rook again. So the two moves that you could play, one is queen to d8, adding a second defender. This move isn't obviously not an option. But the move I played in the game, which maybe wasn't as good, but it was pretty good, was pawn from e6 to e5. And that then, it's like a discovered attack on the queen, but it's also like a discovered X-ray attack on the pawn. Now, X-ray defense. So the X-ray defense is a tactic where you defend a piece through its attacker. And it's something that bishops, rooks, and queens can do. It's just worth bearing in mind. So now we have an exchange of queens, and that messes up my pawn structure here, okay? But at least I haven't lost material. And now we're getting into an ending where I've got awkwardly placed pawns on the king side, 4 against 3. On the queen side of the board, white has a 3 against 2 majority. The other imbalance, of course, is that white has a knight and I have a bishop. So it's fairly even at this point. Now we have an exchange of rooks. So now we're down to 1 rook each. White kicks my bishop. Bishop has to come back to there. Because this square, this square, this square. I mean, this was a possibility. I could have gone there, and then if knight takes, pawn takes, and I could actually have restored my pawn structure on the king side. But I moved all the way back, and now rook to d1, occupying the open file. And now I put my bishop on c5, where it's protecting this pawn and protected by this pawn, and also pinning the pawn on f2. King moves, breaking the pin. I push a5. So this is a decent move. It's actually taking away these 2 squares from my king, because at this point now, my king wants to get into the game. It wants to move it towards the center of the board, right? And this move is preventing that by blocking off e7 and g7. So I decide to push the h pawn, and then maybe my king can come round on these light squares, avoiding the squares that the knight is hitting, and chase the knight away. So we have h4 by white, I play h7, f3 is played, and now g6. Now I think that white's spider senses let him down at this point, because if you look at where this knight can go now, it can't go to here because king takes, can't go to there because king takes, there bishop takes, it can go to here because that square is defended by the rook, their pawn takes, and their bishop takes for free, and his own pieces are on here. So he's only really got one move, and yet on his next move white resigns the game. So what do you see about this board layout, and what tactic could you employ as black to exploit the layout? Well, the simple tactic is, well, the pattern is that you see that the rook and the knight are on the same file, and that the rook is not defended. So very simply, rook to d8 has the knight in a horrible pin. The knight can't move, and can't move with check. That's important. It's on an opposite colour to my king, therefore it can't make one move with check. anyway. So white is looking at, and obviously if the rook moves, or even if the rook doesn't move, then I can simply capture the knight, and that will put me in a very strong position. So white now resigns at this point. It's a simple tactic, right? You've probably done this many times before, pinned a piece in that way with a rook or a queen or a bishop, and it was enough just to tip the game finally, really. So the point of this is you might find yourself playing somebody rated nearly 200 points higher than yourself, but everybody makes mistakes. So it's no bad thing just to sit tight and always expect your opponent to be capable of a blunder, because this game was pretty much in the balance, and it's all decided by a couple of sloppy moves. So I think really allowing my king here, so I think this was probably the mistake from white, because he didn't take the time, and he's got 21 minutes left on his clock, right? Didn't figure out that the knight was actually realistically out of moves, and that this one wasn't an option. So there you go. Always expect your opponents to be capable of slipping up, because it happens all the time. All right. Thank you for watching Chess Bootcamp. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and I'll see you soon.